probably most of your listeners are hearing this right now. Tina Peters, Governor Polis, has commuted her sentence. So it's a big deal within the mainstream media. What he did is he commuted her sentence. He didn't say it didn't happen. He didn't overturn the charges. He said that he's commuting her sentence to the time served at 2 years and 4.5 months or whatever it is, 1 year and 4.5 months. And it's a clemency action, which, just reduces it to time served. Now she'll be out on parole, and the terms of her parole will be determined by the parole board, what she can and can't do, whether she can travel
more like
out of
what
state.
she can, more like what she can or cannot say.
Well, and that's another thing. See, Governor Polis also mentioned that the judge had violated her civil rights by saying in the sentencing that things that she said, added to the way he decided to sentence her. And he was punishing her for things that she was saying publicly. So he agreed with the appeals court that her civil rights had been violated, her free speech rights had been violated. So he noted that her sentencing was extreme because of that. And so for that reason, and because Tina confessed that she had done something wrong and apologized, please have mercy on me, then Polis is giving mercy. That doesn't sit right, but everybody has to understand. Well, hold on. Let me say one important thing.
She did something wrong. This is crazy.
Remember, we were fairly comfortable that with the president's pardon, she would have been out a long time ago, that other things were in play to get her released, and none of those came to fruition in actually getting her out. And there are health issues, etc. So if Polis, because she is a political prisoner, totally a prisoner to both sides, by the way. Trump said he'd take extreme measures, and yet he was unable to go further than the pardon. Although the context, even right now for Polis, why did he do this all of a sudden just now? As Peter Tickton said a couple of times in the last couple of days, he personally advised President Trump that he should give Governor Polis till the end of the month. And if Tina isn't free, then he should go ahead and exercise those extreme measures. And that was in play by everything that we've heard. Polis bunted and said, okay, let her out. Tina admits guilt, admits that she did something wrong, and she gets out. The president's pardon still stands. And the ability to appeal these things, even up through higher courts, all the way to the Supreme Court, and overturn the underlying conviction remains for her. So the fact that he's provided clemency is not the same as a pardon. The clemency, from the way I understand it, allows her to still go through the court process and eventually overturn the underlying conviction. And then her confession and all the other stuff would become somewhat moot. This is not quite the same as what happened with Flynn, where he admitted before trial that he had done the crimes and then accepted the sentencing based on his statements. So I believe that what we're going to find is that this can still all be made to eventually go away, but this allows her to get out of the prison itself specifically, not free of the parole system, and then be able to address health issues and things like that, and be in a safer environment. The parole board could still keep their tongs in her for quite some time. And being Colorado, they may not want to let go of her completely for some time for optics, etc. So the fight's still on in many lanes, but this is still great news for Tina, and in a very difficult situation, about as good as we could hope for the moment, apparently.
There's an unprecedented threat that we just found by accident. They were repairing a dam at Big Creek Lake. That is a 3,600 acre lake, a reservoir that holds about 17 billion gallons of drinking water. It is the main source of drinking water for Mobile, Alabama. And they found an explosive device just under the water line, accidentally. We don't have much more information than that, other than things are looking like they might get really serious.
See that article about the dam in Alabama, about the IED found underwater there, placed underwater by the dam in Mobile, Alabama.
Yeah.
What, you hear about that?
No, I didn't.
Yeah, let me try to look it up real quick. I just wanted your thoughts on it. My thoughts on this are, I would be checking all the dams right now. I'd be sending a diving team to all the dams across the United States, because wouldn't that be a clever way to take down the infrastructure?
Well, and of course, then the next point I would make is, well, how'd they find this one? Who let them know? Who brought them up to speed? Yeah.
Well, I think they were doing just a routine. I don't know what they were doing. Maybe they were just doing a routine thing or something. But here it is right here, Juanito. I wanted to get your insight on this just real quick. Here's the article, right? Bingo, there it is. IED near Alabama reservoir detonated after officials warn of unprecedented critical infrastructure threat. Look at that.
Yeah. Well, here's what I compare it to, Nino. Supposedly, police officers saw that a van going down the road in northern Arizona or wherever, its lights were on high beam. So they pulled the van over because the people didn't put their lights down to low beam, these detectives that happened to be on another matter. In the course of talking to the guys, they searched the van, and it's got, a gazillion rounds of ammo in the back, and the guys in the van are illegals. How'd they know to get that van? Was it as happenstance? Well, I actually picked up about 3 vans within just a few days that were similar, transporting ammunition to the Midwest. That wasn't as happenstance as the reporting made it seem. You had the gang leaders who were arrested. They were talking, and they gave information about people within their organizations and things they were doing. That was just one example of many where gun houses, drug houses, money laundering operations were all stopped and addressed, short stopped on things that they otherwise wanted to do. Again, we're pushing hard at every level. IEDs are kind of a Iranian thing, and Soleimani, who invented the IEDs. So if you found one, maybe you've got insights into places where others might be. It is a threat to the infrastructure, and so we're addressing it. Why has Trump taken as long as he has to move into certain areas of what we're going to do internally in the nation in policing and then also military operations to stop foreign interference here in the country, foreign threats? Because we had all of this to sift through and get through, remove these threats at the local level. There may still be threats out there, but I'll bet you they're radically less than they were 2 years ago, a year and a half ago, 6 months ago, 6 weeks ago. Okay, we're eroding our opponent's ability to threaten us. These globalistas, it's more than just little tiny terrorist groups. It's full court press by globalista to stop what's about to happen. Even the removing of documents that were slated for release by Tulsi Gabbard's office, they don't want that within these organizations, including CIA and other things, because of what it's going to do to open other doors, pull on threads that lead to all sorts of other information. So we're in the right zone. The city within the city, where the Queen when she was alive, had to go to the gate of the city of London, take off her shoes, enter, curtsy and bow, kiss the ring, kiss the ass of the mayor of the city of London, where the square mile where all the banks are, which is the old Roman city within London with its own wall, etc. What Ian is telling you is the same thing that I'm saying to the audience here. There's a nexus of authority and control within these global networks that hasn't been recognized. Even China hasn't been their own man because the banks are controlling China. Hong Kong controlled by the Brits. Oh, we left, we're done. Hiding in plain sight, these hidden relationships and power plays that control the direction of the world, even into the finances and things like that. So there's games within the games. More of this will get exposed, and the relationships of certain people within those games. I don't need to be the internet police. Enough people, you will know them by their fruits, by their actions. So you don't have to guess. Before this is all over, a lot of these alliances are going to come out. In fact, I'll tell you one little sneaker. So I've seen a certain person inside the Trump operations that has, for all the world, he's just the greatest guy in the world. And really speaking truth about stuff going on, especially out of England and like that. Yet I know he's a paid operative to MI6.
Oh, you don't want to say who it is?
1,000%. And it's no, I'm not going to go there. But over time, that will get exposed. It will not be unknown into the media, and there's going to be some embarrassment over that, I believe, by all the parties involved. It's all going to come out.
It'll be very, very close to
this
Trump.
thing comes unraveled. It's all going to come out. That's the whole point, and they don't want it to come out.
Is he very close? Is he very close to Trump?
Well, we'll let that come out.
Okay. All right.
There's going to be plenty of efforts to slime and besmirch everybody. But some of that's not going to stick because the truth's going to come out. Who was related to who and how's it going? I use this as an example. If right up until Admiral Rogers presented what he had to President Trump, President-elect Trump, back in 2016, November 17th.
Be careful here.
If he had not gotten into that office and shown Trump that he was being with paperwork showing the exact listening in on him, you would have thought he was a bad guy. He got to the head of NSA, and not an easy thing to do. Arguably the most powerful position, second to the presidency on the planet, the biggest intelligence gathering agency on the planet. And yet when he broke to the side of Trump, he showed his true alliance affiliations and gave critical information, not just to Trump, but to the country. He had to play the game all the way along. There's other people that have had to play the game, and even actions. You could argue maybe that a Brennan or a Comey or other people were in some kind of a deep cover operation to expose some of the other players, and they tell stuff. Well, it'll come out, and they won't have been who they would like you to believe, pure as the wind-driven snow. That's what this moment in time is about. Everybody gets to kind of get revealed for who they really, truly are. And even within your listenership, Nino, a lot of people that are a little bit too ready to dump Trump at the drop of a hat, as things come out more and more and more, it'll be harder and harder to side with the crews that say that Trump has somehow lost his way or whatever. We're doing just fine. Trump's said that he will never betray us. He will never abandon us or go some other direction. I think he's telling the truth. And but some of this stuff isn't clear quite yet. The fog is lifting.
There's been a high valued source I have who there's a lot of question and chatter in certain circles, I'll leave it at that, about DARPA. That DARPA is a real good group of folks up in the military that are taking care of us. So my question to you is, DARPA a part of the military and that they are on the side of the people? Or has DARPA turned dark and given us things under an illusion like the creation of Facebook to gather our information? Define DARPA, sir, to the best of your knowledge and ability.
Well, the short answer to your question is yes to both. Yes, it's full of good people doing good work. And yes, it is a dark organization that is establishing and has established for some time the architecture by which the rest of the planet is controlled. Army Defense Research Organization, the cutting edge. But once again, if you know the name and see the faces, that means it's a front for somebody who's providing that stuff to them. Yes, there are intelligent, hardworking people. In fact, we have a DARPA in Australia, same sort of role, but would be the Appalachian equivalent of yours, let's just put it that way. At one point, I was very keen to get involved because I was excited about innovation. This is going back into the 90s. And I saw that's where I would be most satisfied in my work, diving into the future. I didn't get the job. That's probably a blessing in disguise. What do they say? Rejection is God's protection. Never got involved with DARPA. But they're both good people, highly intelligent, highly innovative, creative minds in the military, but directed towards nefarious ends and certainly applications. So it is actually both.
Gotcha. Thank you. Rudy Giuliani, published by Newsmax the other day, reported that the condition concerning his lungs. So now that narrative gets entered in. And that's when I started to say, well, maybe there's what they're trying to pull out of this. I don't know. Rudy being somewhat of a controversial figure, he was dressed in drag on a Saturday Night Live many years ago. People having fun with that. Some people have opinions about his involvement in 9/11. We know for certain he and President Trump have been very good friends and really cleaned up New York and transformed New York from something that it was to something much better. But in either case, me personally, it's probably a bit of a script or taking advantage of perhaps an event he had. Who knows? But thank you for briefly weighing in on Rudy Giuliani, and I wish him well. All right, so let's move on. Let's look at put up that image of John and Ricardo. There they are, John and Ricardo. That's what I feel like a little bit when we do our shows. Siskel and Ebert, analyzing the movie, rating the movie, going over the script by script to have us weigh in on the current events, where the script has to have good actors, as you often say. I don't know, their names just crossed my mind the other day. Any fun comment, Ricardo, about that?
Oh, I think it's perfect. Thank you for that. That's you couldn't communicate a complex idea more simply with that simple photograph. And look, and we both understand that there's a narrative. The narrative has to be advanced. We understand that. There's no point spoiling the end because the author has a plan and the plan has to be laid out as the author intended. But then we have other people that know what's going on behind the scenes, and we've got to meet both needs, both the target audience and those who are a bit informed. So yeah, it's a good picture. It's an interesting job we've got though. It's fascinating, and I can't help but laugh sometimes when when something weird just happens and we have to seriously look at the screen and discuss it. But look, just understand, ladies and gentlemen, whether it's a movie or real life, somebody's directing it. There is a plot, there are characters, and there is a very satisfying end in the end.
Enter anywhere you choose on the now UFO file, historic released by President Donald J. Trump.
Thank you. The first thing I'd like to say is, for those of you who are trying to figure out whether DJT is a good guy or a bad guy, a black hat or a white hat, a Zionist or an anti-Semite or a whatever, if you're still trying to figure out what he is, the plan's working beautifully. and I'm not trying to be clever here, because if you're still trying to figure out where he is, perfect. Because what's he got to do? He's got to keep everybody, including us, the great unwashed who are trying to make sense of this world, confused and uncertain. Because that means the bad guys are confused and uncertain, and that means it gives the good operators out there room to maneuver, freedom of maneuver around the good guys and the bad guys. So if you're confused, if you can either take this as definitive evidence that Trump's part of the guys because Werner von Braun announced to his secretary that the great deception of ETs would be revealed, and therefore this confirms that Trump's a bad guy. And on the other hand, you've got Trump's a good guy because he's finally releasing stuff we've been demanding for many, many, many decades. And so if you're confused by it and you're still trying to make up your mind, fantastic. That's exactly what they're after. Now, if we get to the actual the meat of this particular question, the whole issue of ETs and why it's being revealed. Is it a distraction? Sort of, but in a good way, because this is what people want. Is it going to be a drip or a flood? I'm with you, John. It'll be slow and frustrating because, again, that's what they need to do. But there will be enough to really get people a little bit excited. Stephen Greer will finally be able to say, see, what I've been saying all this time is right. And there are people that don't like Stephen Greer. There are people that do like Stephen Greer. He's the individual for those who don't know. Stephen Greer's been working for decades. He's a physician. He's very dedicated to revealing this. He's had many programs, reports, documents, testimonials from people who can verify reports, and so he's been one of those dogged pursuers for some time. So again, is this going to prove that Stephen Greer's a good guy or a bad guy? Neither. Sit back, watch it, make your own mind up. Now, that opening slide you've got, there are no ETs, and they don't like being called aliens. They like being called ETs. Gosh, how do I know that? They prefer ETs. Just let's leave it there. Do ETs exist? Are they demons? Okay, first issue here. Definitions. Definitions matter. What do you determine? What do you call a demon? What do you call an extraterrestrial? From where do you get your terms? Is it the Bible? Because something strange turned up, it was a demon. It says it was a demon. Could it have been an ET? Maybe. And now, because people can't define what they're talking about, and as John said, these are foundational beliefs. This is really going to rattle people. So is this about disclosure about extraterrestrials? Yes. Is it about beginning to crack open that white knuckle grip that some people have got on their foundational ideas of life on Earth, whether it's to do with spirituality, evolution? It doesn't matter. It's all at best grossly incomplete and mostly flat out lie. There's the problem. And so this release has at least two immediate impacts. One, it satisfies people to one degree, but it starts the larger issue for me. It starts a very slow journey where people are now going to be confronted with facing a different reality in terms of the basis of their relationship to the Almighty and no Almighty. So it doesn't matter whether you're an atheist, agnostic, or a believer, this is going to start to challenge you because you're going to have to start thinking about these things in quite some depth. What does it mean to me? How do I know how to live? Are the 10 Commandments real? Was Yahweh just another ET that had a low-grade tribe of proto-humans to look after? And he wasn't a very nice guy, as has been claimed in certain books. For example, was he God? What do I now believe? Are the 10 Commandments sound? Is the Bible completely fallacious? We know much of it is. We know much of the Old Testament particularly is Babylonian satanic magic ritual. The original Hebrew religion was smashed into that, like they tried to do recently with Chrislam by smashing Christianity and Islam together. And they had this magnificent setup in the United Arab Emirates where you had a temple and a church and a mosque all together, all holding hands, where there was Chrislam but no Christ. This is, again, the old playbook, that they are not imaginative. So the existence of ETs as opposed to demons as step one, that's going to terrify just about everybody. and it'll excite the rest. But it's beginning to crack that greatest of all fears that we have. What is my understanding of life on Earth? Because this now changes everything. Now, can you get through that? Absolutely. You can get through it. Don't sweat it. You're okay. I remember, and there's a personal example. And this was just part of my own development as a young man, I guess. And allow me just to wax lyrical for a bit here, John, if you don't mind. Excuse me. I was sitting in the officers' mess at the Special Air Service Regiment on a Saturday, watching the footy, having a great old time, bottle of Coke, packet of chips. Life was good. And as I sat there, it occurred to me, this question popped into my head, and you can guess the origin of the question. And it said, is cold the lack of heat, or is heat the lack of cold? Now, that's an odd question to hit a young captain in the Special Air Service Regiment, but it did. And so I stopped paying attention to the TV and started thinking about it. And that quickly morphed. Is light the lack of dark, or is dark the lack of light? And it started to get clarity. And then it changed to, is good the lack of evil, or is evil the lack of good? And then I ended up with, is God the lack of devil, or is devil the lack of God? And these are pretty simple philosophical questions that any junior woodchuck would ask themselves if they're serious about determining their relationship with life. The short version of that particular journey in that time of my life was, I came to the conclusion, although being raised a very good Catholic, and I was a very earnest young Catholic boy, I'd go to chapel at lunchtimes at school, go to church after school sometimes as well. But then I discovered alcohol and women, and my views of life changed just a little. And the conclusion as I started this philosophical journey of my own was there is no God, and that's okay. If that's true, I had to decide, well, what rules do I apply? Because I can't just take somebody else's rules and apply them because I've been told to. That doesn't show any independence of mind or spirit. And so at the ripe old age of whatever it was, I don't know, 27, I guess, 28, something like that. I decided I had to come up with a complete philosophy for life to determine all of my thoughts, words, and deeds that were consistent with my understanding of the nature of life on Earth, which is there is no God. And so I had to rebuild an entire ethical structure for myself during those few years. Long story short, and it doesn't really matter. Nothing matters. Nothing matters. There's no set value system. I said, if that's the case, even if there are no value system, is that a world I want to wake up into? Open the door and you know, I'd rather live in a happy world where, you know, you live and let live. Let me live my life, you live your life, and let's not interfere with each other unless we're doing something really bad. And ended up with basically a Christian ethic, but based on the fact that I choose to live a good life, even though it doesn't matter one iota whether I do or not in terms of after the life. Things changed after that, and that's another story. The point is this is a journey we've all got to go through, and this is the major point of this ET exclosure from my perspective. Is it interesting? You betcha, it's fascinating. Wait till you find out the types of species that are out there. There's the tall, skinny ones. There's an ET life form, you've got to call it that because it's consciousness, but it comes in the form of a gas of cloud. There's an ET consciousness out there that is super dense material that exists at the very edge of the known universe. And, you know, a teaspoon of this material is so dense, if you brought it to planet Earth, it'd collapse the Earth. The gravity is so great. And so all these things will be revealed, and it'll get you thinking. So just so we're clear, are there ETs? Oh, yes, there are. And I'm not talking about one of my ex-wives. I'm actually talking about extraterrestrials. And they come in many forms. And for those whose mind is spinning now, you know, don't put God in a box, please. I'm sure the one thing that he finds most amusing is when we say, oh, no, God can't do that. Yeah, God can do what he likes. So anyway, it's a fascinating time to be alive. I'm glad this is out. Not because of the ET stuff, but because it is now the beginning of a serious move by the White Hats to start wresting away from people some of the most profound lies that they have bought into. And in starting that journey, which you'll make it through, relax, it's all okay. You'll make it. You're going to have to let go of a bunch of stuff, but you'll make it. But in going through that journey, you'll begin to be liberated in a way you cannot imagine. It is just extraordinary. Not necessarily easier, but you're a whole lot freer.
Thank you very much. I'd like to extend an invitation to you. I know your schedule is very busy, but if you can find the time to join us on that panel, Off-World with JMC, the invitation's been publicly requested. Thank you, sir. And Sandy will get with you as we begin to launch our premiere episode. You'll see some familiar friends that we have that'll be in that show, but there'll be some new folks that haven't crossed through my path that we're looking into right now to comment on that broad subject. Me, I'm thrilled. I just find it fascinating. Again, Siskel and Ebert. I'm watching the next script unfold, and it's getting interesting. And I, for one, won't be rattled on my grounding in terms of it bumping up against biblical issues. I know what my belief is in our Creator, and I'm very, very strong there. And there's so much we don't know. I don't know. Is it 22 books of the Bible that was kept from us, Ricardo? How many books did we rescue out of the Vatican tunnels? I mean, there's so much we don't know that we were intended to know. And this might be a piece of that. Who knows? 40,000-foot view, because there is so much going on. But we have to talk about Iran, NATO, EU, and Cuba for a moment. And so let's begin. Iran has been so fluid. It's almost day by day. Another strategy by our commander-in-chief is having to be deployed based on the nonsense we keep hearing out of Iran. What's the current situation there? How do you see it playing out? What's going on?
Yeah, this is really interesting, and I'll come at this with a strange approach. Our head of intelligence, the head of the Australian Secret Intelligence Service, that's our equivalent of your CIA, and the minister responsible recently exposed an online $74 million to tracking radicalization of people online. They've just woken up. There's a problem. Well done. But what was interesting out of the whole statement, this is, ladies and gentlemen, when you watch the mainstream media, watch really carefully and then listen really carefully, because the one line out of the whole thing, which was just fluff, they're going to target specifically Sunni radicalization. I went, really? Not Islamic, but Sunni. Now, there's a message in that. Why would they be targeting Sunni? Well, okay, well, it's the opposite of Sunni. There are many, many sects of Islam, the two major, as we know. The largest is Sunni, the next largest is Shia. And where the Shias live? Iran. So they're not targeting Iranians. They're not targeting, this is for public consumption. The Australian government is not worried about anything coming out of Iran and radicalization, but the Sunnis, which is the rest of the Islamic world. That's not a bad thing, but it's not the whole thing. So I said to myself, why? Why are the Sunnis being targeted and not the Shia? What's going on, Iran? And this is what's going on in Iran right now. I mean, that's anybody's guess, because none of us have, I promise you, none of us except DJT and his people have a clear idea what's going on. There are claims the entire Navy's gone. The claims the Air Force is gone. That they're sending out a few whaler boats with drones on them to do their best, etc. Again, I don't believe any of that at all. I think they're keeping this little wound festering because there's so much to come out of it. And it's not about the Straits of Hormuz, although, at first glance you say, well, how can one nation interfere with operation on international waters, in the sense that it's a strait, they don't own the strait, it's always a tense negotiation between neighbours when the two exclusive economic zones and Nordic and the sovereign limits out to 12 miles, when they bump into each other, you've got to negotiate that. But the fact that this has been allowed to run for so many years with Iran threatening to close it has been a big deal. But it has never really been anything other than collection of tolls, basically, as they go through it. It's a money-raising venture. Understand, ladies and gentlemen, that the black hats need money to run their show. Nobody does this work for nothing, except silly fools like me at A1. But the point is this. So what's going on in Iran right now, they're keeping it open because there are bigger issues at stake, and it has very little to do with the Straits of Hormuz, or that's the stated reason why it's an issue. If they needed to, excuse me, they could leave right now because Iran's under control. Anybody saying that there's still a war to be had and they're terrified that a boots on the ground will end up in tens of thousands of American deaths, they're doing that to frighten children and old ladies. There is no threat there, but they're keeping it alive in order the discussion going, in order to cover up other things. Now, I've alluded to this before, and you mentioned ETs earlier. There are extraterrestrial and let's just say spiritual and ET connections to Iran that are quite profound that need to be taken care of as well. And that's amongst a range of other issues. We also know, courtesy of people at Promethean Action, for example, that it's a major control point for the City of London to control the Middle East. So there are multiple issues going on, and that's why Iran has been allowed to survive as long as it did. When the Ayatollah first took over and the Shah was thrown out, that was a big step forward for the cabal because there was an obvious control. The Shah of Iran at that stage could see exactly what was going on. He actually gave an interview, I think, to CBS reporter, I can't remember, describing exactly what we know to be the truth today, that there is a Khazarian/Jewish control of the US media, amongst other things, and they are running the show. And so that he had to be replaced, and it was. And they've been doing something like 47 years, I think. They've been controlling it. So they've got to keep this wound apparently still open. It's not, but apparently still open with nonsense discussions because there are other issues. I've mentioned a couple, and I don't doubt there are many more that I'm not aware of. But that's why it's being kept alive. Not because the Iranians are putting up a stellar fight. They're not. They're done. They're finished. They're under control, like every country on the planet is under control. But the people beneath them have to believe that that is not the case. And that's why I started with that first comment. If you're trying to figure out whether DJT is a good guy or a bad guy, a black hat or a white hat, perfect. Because there are still the lower level elements that have to be cleaned out. I mean, we're talking about not very bright people that all of a sudden might be extremely powerful in terms of their capacity to cause dramas. And the white hats don't want too many dramas.
Yeah, some of those people that may not be too intelligent lined up for their vaccine so they can get a cheeseburger and a donut. And let's hope they've risen up the scale of intelligence since then and don't go fall for that again. But great points you raised there on Iran and the world situation. So we can be brief on these. NATO and Euro, EU, the European Union, particularly France and Germany. There's a lot I see going on there. And of course, us slowly but surely looking to me like we're done with NATO and to an extent finding out who's who and what's what in Europe. What's your opinion about that pocket and some of at least the optics that were being shown? Comment on those optics and pull the curtain back a bit.
Yeah, NATO's been shown for what it is, and he's closed the page on that in terms of the public narrative. Yeah, we asked for your help. You didn't give it to us. You're on your own. Not interested anymore. We're pulling out. Look after yourselves, which is a big problem for them, not for the US. It's good for the US, not good for Europe. Right. The other issue is this. You mentioned France particularly, and here's a bit of a signal. The dismantling of the control mechanisms in Europe, NATO being one, EU being another, but then you've got the Masonic filth. We call them the Masonic filth here in Oz. Now, what's that got to do with it? Well, the Masons run everything. Now, the fact that, and there's an article or a court case in France, I think it started started in March, where there was a Masonic grouping that were being charged with having or exercising their desires via hit squads, assassinations for anything that got in their way. Now, this is now unique because you want to go back to the French Revolution. That was a Masonic event. The French Revolution, ladies and gentlemen, if you weren't aware of it, was a Masonic event that was intended to destroy a lot, and it achieved that objective. That's why it became such a bloodbath. What was sold as initially as the fraternity, equality, and whatever the hell they talk about in France, other than croissants, wasn't the case. It was turned into a bloodbath because the Masons needed to destroy the country, which they did. And so to have a public trial now charging a Masonic lodge with running hit squads it's sort of interesting in and of itself, but it's going to send reverberations through the Masonic organization. Their top cover, I think I mentioned previously, their top cover is gone. If this is happening, how can it be happening? We run the country, we run the planet. How can we be doing this? Because we know that a Mason judge and a Mason lawyer can never hurt another Mason, no matter how guilty they are. Even in warfare, it was found that when two Masons from the opposite sides saw each other, they didn't engage. That's how powerful this oath the Masons takes is. And so in terms of France and Europe, the Masonic control has been dismantled by and large, but now it's being shown to the lower levels. They weren't told about it, and the lower levels are now panicking because the higher levels are no longer applying that protection. Those individuals from the polity, the judiciary, the bureaucracy, the military, the constabulary, that to this point have had a free ride with their criminal activities are now being charged, tried, found guilty, and punished. And this is setting reverberations through the Masonic organization globally. They are terrified. They have no idea what to do next because this is not a world they understand. They literally run the planet. And now what? The French lodge that has a hit squad out there is being charged. They're terrified. So it's the control mechanism in Europe has been dismantled. We know that, but now it's being publicly revealed by these charges in order to show the lower level Masons who still haven't got a clue. And there are still a lot of people in the polity, bureaucracy, and military and constabulary that don't know because they're not allowed to watch shows like this. I can tell you in Australia, for example, if any military officer is found watching any of Bosie's broadcasts, they get a visit. They get a knock on the door. And they get a visit from some very important people saying, what are you up to? Because you're guilty of bad things because you've been watching Bosie and Bosie says things we don't like. I got warned a few years ago, a couple of times. Don't do it. Stop it. You don't know what you're playing with. You've got to stop talking about it. Just don't talk about it. They're all sweet biscuits. They like the moral courage to do what's right, to think what's right, to say what's right. And that's fine. But that's what's happening in Europe. The structure, which has been dismantled, is now being revealed to be no longer in control, and it's panicking the entire Masonic world. They are,
Absolutely.
Before I said there's a schism, they're fracturing now. They are literally fracturing, which is great news.
That little island 90 miles south of Key West, Florida, known as Cuba. Obviously, the people are suffering greatly there, always have been since Castro took over. And now it's extraordinarily difficult because of the operation we conducted in Venezuela and so forth. But again, I hate to say this, I'm not insensitive to the people of Cuba, but no pain, no gain. Break down the Cuba bubble, if you will, the way you just broke down NATO and Euro. What's happening with Cuba and where does it end up? Cuba's up for grabs as I see it.
Yeah, well, it's already been grabbed. It's. I can tell you the last chapter for Cuba. It's going to turn into an island paradise. The people will be set free. They'll be free to now pursue their lives the way they wish. It's going to be as popular as any of the tourist resorts you can imagine, and that's what's going to happen. It's going to be a fantastic world for the Cubans. Now, as you said, no pain, no gain. Exchange with the Cubans in the United States. We're going to go back to Cuba and say, hey, this is where I want to be, and I'm going to set my business up. Mm-hmm. And as I said, if you get the health right and the wealth right, watch these countries explode into productivity and abundance. And so that's what's going to happen to Cuba. But right now, it's the image we are getting. They're still suffering. The communists are still under control. They're not really communists. We know that. This is a criminal cartel. They appear to be under control. They appear to be in control, but they're not. They're under control. Again, it's all being rolled out very slowly in order to achieve what they need to achieve. But Cuba is going to be a paradise one more time. And not necessarily by corrupt casino operators, which it was previously, but genuine opportunity for the people to live their lives as free individuals. It's going to be brilliant.
Yes. Beautiful. That was my thought process too. You can return to what it once was, as you said, perhaps to some degree, minus all the corruption in casinos. But it was a glorious island place many years ago. Hemingway used to go there all the time, and then of course we knew what happened over the last 60 years. Why has President Trump been saying over all those years, from 2016 forward?
Your silence has made you complicit. I'm talking to the mainstream media. I'm talking to Hollywood. I'm talking to the politicians. I'm talking to everybody. This has been going on, and you've said and done nothing. So one more tip for people who are trying to figure out whether Donald Trump is a good guy or not. If you just open your eyes and ears, I think you'll be able to work it out. But this level of depravity, again, this is like the ET exposure. We're opening the door now. Or not we, but DJT is opening the door. What's coming next will be some of this depraved information that's going to really upset a lot of people. In fact, not to put too fine a point, and I know you want to move on, but I know of two senior military officers, I won't say which branch of the military they're in, at different times over the last couple of years have discovered, and they were good people, and they thought they were doing the right things for the right reasons. And when there was a knock on the door and the truth was explained to them, that they weren't innocent, but they weren't entirely culpable, if that makes sense. One sobbed uncontrollably, and I'm not talking a manly tear, like he really lost it. The second, to this day, still feels deeply sick and wounded because he's worked so hard and he thought honorably for so long, and he's realized what he's been facilitating and been working on. And so that's what's going to happen to everybody when this, well, not everybody actually, to be honest, no, everybody won't. Only the good people with an actual conscience will feel bad and regret what they have done. The rest won't care. But that's what's coming next. And so that response is going to be more prevalent over the coming days, weeks, and months. People are going to be in a very bad way when they realize, and they see the evidence. And everyone said, you'll go as far as you want to go. But as the truth comes out, there's going to be increasing anger, and that's already started. We're getting more and more people online sounding like me when I get all salty in my language. There's a lot of that more coming out now, and people are discovering it. So buckle up. It's going to get untidy.
Thank you. Yeah, look, to say we are in the phase of disclosure is an understatement of the century, and we're watching the world wake up and the various impact on how they're processing truths that have been undisclosed. And I took a little list of things here to remind our viewers of what, and this is a short list that I just did off the cuff here, but what are some of the big things that are happening right now at this phase of these battles? Well, we have the arrest of Comey and the low-lying fruit, we'll call it, in the FBI. All roads lead to Obama. We have the president on the record stating Obama committed treason, and we know what the punishment for treason is. We know military tribunals are ongoing. We know military tribunals are swift and not bought and paid. Treasury Department, long press release, if you will, about the new currency, and nowhere in the press release did the words federal and Federal Reserve show up, but President Trump's name and Scott Bessent did on new currency. People are anticipating in July 4th. We'll see when it comes out. And then we close out with the reveals of Christy Teigen, as you just stated, questionably a woman, and all that entails that are still in the Epstein files and the Epstein issue. Not a lot of talk about it right now, which means a lot is actually going to be done. So you just threw a smattering at the dartboard, if you will, of some of the events that are happening. So anyone who thinks or still clings on to nothing's happening, maybe you got the 66-point IQ like that poor guy they used to set up in Australia, because things are happening, folks, in a very big way. And that brings me to this. Let's put this post up to my producer, please. This will finally give Derek Johnson credit due. Anybody running, this is your commander-in-chief, Donald J. Trump. Anybody running for president or vice president should be forced to take a cognitive examination prior to entering the race. By doing so, we wouldn't be surprised that people like Barack, in quotes, Hussein Obama, or Sleepy Joe Biden getting, quote, elected, quote, elected. Yep. Our country would be a much better place. I took the exam. Here we go. And this is why I put this up. The president says, I took the exam 3 times during my 3 terms as president. There you have it. So those that threw Derek Johnson under the bus, and he doesn't need me to defend him, say what you will about Derek and so forth and so on, but I know of nobody who's done a better job than Derek Johnson at understanding the law of war manuals, the PEDS, the executive orders, the history of these things, how they work, and how they're being explained to us, or he's helping us at least match it up to current events. But there it is, President Trump himself, 3 times. And as you know, Lieutenant Colonel Bosey, the president also schooled the generals and admirals by saying that what that dash represented on the cap. But here it is, 3 terms as president and aced at all times. He's speaking about the cognitive test, an achievement that even on a single exam, according to the doctors, has rarely been done before. President Donald J. Trump. This is the wrap of our show. With any other closing comments you'd like to leave us with, Ricardo. But I find this post, it's just a drive-by post. This should be front page news, right? And even people in our movement probably missed on this. Well, we already knew it. But what do you think of this? I find this fascinating.
Yeah, your rundown of all the evidence is overwhelming, and the 66 IQ comment, if people are offended by that, tough. I'm sorry, but seriously, the time has come. You know, time to turn off the TV and start reading for a change. But the 3 terms of the president is a lovely way to finish. The truth's out there. If you want to watch it, most people still won't buy it. They just won't. Because there are too many. It's too much too soon for just about all of them, and that's why the last thing that's going to get their attention is their money. Because they genuinely won't be shocked if they're not shocked at full-term abortion enough to look into it. If they're not shocked in, so if you like the idea of your country being cleaned up, if you like your idea of the political class and the bureaucratic class, the legal class, the military class, the police class that run us being cleaned out as they are, we're seeing that as well. And seeing it done effectively and efficiently, that's fantastic. It'll take some time, but you'll eventually get there. We're in great shape. You're under martial law now. It's happening. It's just not fully revealed. And it doesn't need to be.
As was Iran, as was Ukraine, as were we.
Yeah.
Yep. So, no.
Yeah.
And so,
That's interesting.
yeah. So what with the situation with Russia, of course, Europe is just baiting Russia like crazy, and they're trying to build military with, they don't really have much of an economic or military industrial system anymore after what all that they've gone through with Ukraine and all the funding and all of the stuff with the Green New scam and shutting down their nuclear reactors and all that stuff. They're not very viable, especially Germany and France. They're pretty much gone from some of the major powers of Europe to pretty much not able to do much at all in that area. And so they can't really mount an offensive, but they can make they do have, of course, France and UK and others have nuclear weapons. So they could, say, get a near death event, near black swan event, as it's called, like the Cuban Missile Crisis standoff. And I do think it's probably the dark hats are going to do it, and the white hats will let it go to like the Cuban Missile Crisis just near the last moment, and they'll stop it. So, because there's certain type of people on Earth, there's only one of 2 ways to wake them up, and sometimes it takes both.
Yeah.
To get them out of their complacency of, I got my yacht and I got my cars and I got my mansion and I got my my little house in the mountains or out on the beach, or I got everything, and I don't care what's going on in the world. Doesn't matter to me. Epstein, I don't care. And the files, I don't care. And And I got to do this. I got to do that. I don't care as long as I have my barbecues and my resort stuff and all this stuff. They don't care. And so the other way, their bank account goes to zero. Everything they own goes. They have no money, no stocks, no nothing. It's all gone in the blink of an eye, like in 1929. That's why Trump posted that little movie of 1929. You know, it all goes away in the blink of an eye. That wakes them up because now the little houses in their house and their yachts and their things, they don't own them anymore. They're all gone. All the ownership deeds, titles, everything gone. They're freaking out of their mind, like 1929, jumping out of high buildings, you know? And so, yeah. So, and then sometimes it'll take both to do that. So it may come to both at the same time. A black swan event with an economic collapse. And then it'll all come back after the appropriate amount of time, which is the white hats know. I don't know what that is. They've gamed this out on, you know, a super AI. So how long? It can't be too long or the black hats will take it and win. It can't be too short or the point never is made. And so it has to get to the point where it wakes up all of those people you can wake up. There's 3 to 8% you can't wake up. But the rest of the people got to go. It's got to get so bad, they will go never, ever again. And it may be different in different countries. The U.S. may not be economically broke, bankrupt. All the banks has collapsed. You know, the stock market, all of that. As long as, say, Europe or the Australia or those places, they might, especially the UK, it might take quite a bit longer there. But again, it can't be too long. There's a certain interval which they've gamed out and they know what that is. So, yes, I do believe that not only is that likely to happen, it's pretty darn likely because I don't think there's any other way that it can be done. I don't see how else. I know certain people like that, you know, they're not going to believe anything until it's the stark reality has terrified them of what they're living through. They don't change until it's so bad. They will do anything to make it get better. They will do anything that they can to make it never happen again and to make it stop. And so that's unfortunately the nature of a lot of people on Earth now. There's, you know, not as many people as people think on Earth, but for the majority of human beings and mankind, especially mankind, that's how it is. They're not going to do a darn thing until it's too painful and they can't take it. So back to you, Rob.
No, this was great. We went a decent amount of time. Oh, one more thing I wanted to ask you about was when we used to do shows with Indy and we talked about, you know, I know she's really about the, you know, going against the radical Islam, you know, about like, you know, and she's kind of proved that, you know, it could be a threat, you know, and it seems to, you know, like there's people like Tommy Robinson who speaks out against it and, you know, that's going on in the UK. And do you feel like that's a threat, like with sleeper cells here and like the mass immigration? It seems like Trump was trying to clear out the immigration, but like, do you see that as like something that like would be a potential threat still, or what do you think about that?
Again, they could use that. The White Hats could use that a little bit. Again, they can't use it too much, especially within the U.S., or you create a civil war. And they also have infiltrated all of those cells, all of them. They've infiltrated, just like the Black Hats did back in the day. The White Hats have infiltrated everything, and they know everything, and they have the Golden Dome technology can take every piece of information on Earth, whether it's through anything in the internet or even just, you know, old style walkie-talkies or any kind of transmission at all. And even knowing these cells, it can map out where they are and listen on their conversations wherever they are. Doesn't matter. It, you know, with all the stuff that's being sprayed and the nanotech and the you know, the jab, all of that, they can listen into the thoughts.
Welcome to the greatest transfer of wealth and military sting in world history. The people were no longer the cabal's debt machine. Soon temporary martial law would rule across every nation. Secure food, cash, essentials for 10 to 12 days of possible worldwide lockdown, while Trump's global military alliance finished mass arrests across the world. Trust the plan, God's plan. We're in this together, no fame. This is about taking back our freedom and saving our children, people from the evil that has plagued our country, world for so long. Q. Judy note, New World Order advocates were building data centers across the U.S. and world. The mark of the beast was already decreed in the U.K. What was believed to be a cloned King Charles recently announced, my ministers will proceed with the introduction of digital ID. Julian Assange explained the silent manipulation of digital history, warning that centralized internet archives now possess the power to erase, alter, and control humanity's collective memory in ways most people never imagined possible. This Illuminati deep state's control over our memory, money, lives, and future has been going on for a very long time, using their adept knowledge and application of mind control techniques through homage to Satan. In 1994, 160 nations agreed to reduce the world population to 800 million by 2030. The goal of the Illuminati deep state cabal global elites in their New World Order plan to rule over all of the people. They would do it through mind control. Cuba was a prime example of how to control a population. Top Democrats like Obama, Nancy Pelosi, Barbara Lee of California, Ilhan Omar, Jonathan Jackson of Illinois, and Congresswoman Democrat Washington, Pramila Jayapal, chair of Congressional Progressive Caucus, have visited Cuba many times to meet with Fidel Castro and learn how to implement communism into the U.S. Declassified CIA documents have revealed a covert psychological warfare program present in the U.S. Most had no idea of its negative influence on society yet, because we have been mind controlled by a paid-off mainstream media that no longer had a clue nor meaning of a free press. Yet behind the scenes we were experiencing the greatest transfer of wealth and greatest military sting in the history of the world. President Trump had already returned America to concepts of the original Constitution in a restored republic based on common law. China, too, had been under control of the UK deep state, with Trump's visit and the global currency reset giving them sovereignty to their own monies. China just declared themselves separated from the UK, Vatican, and now defunct US Inc. We the people were no longer the cabal's debt machine. Soon, temporary martial law would rule across every nation. You were advised to secure food, cash, and essentials for 10 to 12 days of a possible worldwide lockdown and communication blackout, while Trump's global military alliance finished making mass arrests across the world. Trust the plan, God's plan. This was a new beginning. After 10 to 12 days of communication darkness, the world would never be the same. There would be a new republic, economy, and legal, health, political, and education systems. Overnight, Thursday, May 15th, President Trump pulled the trigger as he posted this bombshell: "Arrest Obama the traitor." The question for Trump's global military alliance was, where was Obama? Here, there, everywhere, in hiding, in Canada, in Ukraine, in the ground at Gitmo, in his mansion basement listening to conversations in the Oval Office. Very confusing. Yesterday, Thursday the 15th, I posted that it had been confirmed directly from Gitmo Records that in February 2026 Obama had undergone a military tribunal, was convicted of treason, and hanged, among many other deep state elites. Evidently, the former president had been convicted of orchestrating unconstitutional surveillance on the Trump campaign with ties to anti-American forces that fueled domestic chaos and foreign interference. Very confusing. On that same Thursday, May 15th, that Obama was seeking political asylum in Canada. Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard only recently exposed that serious charges were being considered against former President Obama. Very confusing considering he had gone through a military tribunal at the same time Baxter claimed that disgraced former President Barack Hussein Obama, aka Barry Soetoro, formally asked Prime Minister Mark Carney for political asylum in Canada, his latest stop in a global sojourn to find refuge from Trump's military and Department of Justice. Very confusing since the White Hats have fruitlessly hunted Obama since early 2021. Each time they thought they'd caught him, the target turned out to be a body double or clone. Of all the deep state prey White Hats have pursued, Obama had been the most elusive, an ethereal gossamer able to simultaneously appear at multiple places across the globe. As Obama shook hands with Carney in Toronto on May 8th, he was also addressing a class of 2026 high school graduates at a Chicago high school. Perplexingly, legacy media currently surfaced in Chicago and Toronto. One of the two, or possibly both, was a clone, or look-alike. According to a source at U.S. Army Cyber Command, is that the military's premier intelligence agency had intercepted a phone conversation between Carney and Prime Minister of Spain, Pedro Sanchez Perez Castellón, on May 10, 2026. On the call, Carney told Perez Castellón that Obama had approached him for help in evading dragnets cast by the U.S. military and Justice Department. He also told Perez Castellón that, according to Obama, Trump's walls of injustice were closing around him and that without aid, it was only a matter of time before Barack disappears or Barack dies of natural causes, became headline news. Allegedly, Obama had already requested and received asylum and promises of non-extradition from 4 other countries: Poland, Ukraine, New Zealand, and Kenya, the latter his true birthplace. On Carney's call with Prime Minister Perez Castellón, his voice was trembling with fear. He said he'd probably grant Obama asylum, but he was also weary that would happen if President Trump found out Canada's harboring a fugitive. He's elusive. He can't hide forever, our source said. Cyber Command is unsure whether Obama or his double clone met with Carney. Clones are a facsimile of the real deal, and body imposters are well trained to mimic his appearance and mannerisms. The only way to know with 100% certainty, or lack thereof. White Hats have exposed Hollywood actors masquerading as Obama at public events, including Star Trek Voyager actor Tim Russ. Back on April 25, 2023, Baxter wrote an article covering Obama's most famous body double, Tim Russ. Star Trek Voyager actor Tim Russ is Barack Obama body double. Tim Russ, the actor who played the Vulcan Tuvok in Star Trek Voyager in the 1990s, has revived his acting career with a fresh gig, portraying disgraced former President Barack Hussein Obama on television and in public. Very confusing. For years, alternative news has claimed that Obama had faced justice and been replaced by body doubles and doppelgangers, spitting images of the man who reportedly smells like sulfur and was dubbed Lord of the Flies after insects inexplicably landed on his head during numerous press conferences.
Evidently, former President Barack Obama has been arrested in Hawaii and charged with espionage, according to an announcement by Assistant Attorney General for National Security John C. Demers on Saturday the 28th of November 2020. That same day, Obama's former VP Joe Biden began wearing a boot that could hide an ankle bracelet, although he claimed the boot was due to an ankle injury. 2 weeks ago, CIA Director Gina Haspel was captured and detained on charges of election fraud and said to be spilling the beans on Obama and Biden. Obama, Biden, and Haspel were suspected of colluding with foreign powers, including the Chinese Communist Party, plus promoting the use of election fraud to put the socialist-leaning and compromised Biden-Harris's ticket in power, overtake the U.S. government, and establish a new world order. Obama's complaint alleged that the former U.S. president compromised U.S. security by conspiring with a business partner and former CIA agent to give U.S. government classified information to high-up Chinese intelligence officials in the People's Republic of China (PRC). Biden was reported to be under house arrest for compromising U.S. security, by conspiring with a foreign power to interfere with the U.S. election, although Biden was quite upfront about his voter fraud on national TV, saying right before the election that he had compiled the most extensive voter fraud organization in the history of politics. Biden's son Hunter's laptop was said to contain evidence that Biden was compromised, having accepted millions of dollars from China, the Ukraine, and other countries during his years in public office, including his 8 years of serving as Vice President of the U.S. A Sunday, the 22nd of November 2020 report showed Joe Biden stole $140 million from us, Treasury, and transferred it to his personal account in the Caymans. The report shows that Joe Biden stole $140 million from the U.S. federal Treasury and transferred the dollar to Rosemont Senecal, purportedly for bank bailouts, and then to his personal account in the Cayman Islands. Months before the election, the Ukraine had issued a warrant on Biden for his dealings there, news which, like everything else connected to the Democrat cabal, never made it to the left-wing mass media headlines. Haspel's, Obama's and Biden's alleged arrests were said connected to an extensive investigation of massive voter fraud issues centering around Dominion Company servers and the 2020 presidential election that Biden claimed to have won. On the 7th of November 2020, the Saturday after elections, CIA Director Gina Haspel was captured and detained for election fraud. She was injured by us. Spec Ops forces that raided a Frankfurt, Germany CIA server farm site. Unfortunately, 5 U.S. soldiers and one of the CIA mercenaries were killed in the firefight. Haspel, evidently in Frankfurt, to protect server data that would incriminate deep state leaders such as Obama and Biden, was said to be cooperating to lessen her own sentence in revealing information about an extensive voter fraud scam perpetrated by Democrats in the 2020 election. The military raid captured Dominion voting servers, which were found to have swung votes from Trump to Biden from their locations in Germany, Canada, and Spain. Simultaneous raids took place in Toronto Dominion Voting System headquarters and Barcelona, Spain, another CIA Citadel server farm used in the election vote-switching fraud. Although you would never hear about it in today's mass media, the connections were obviously there. George Soros was head of the board of directors for Dominion. Since the November 3rd election, a boatload of evidence has come forth around George Soros-owned. CIA developed Dominion voting machines that tabulated the U.S. election results. The tabulation was done on easily compromised servers in Germany, Canada, and Spain, which were hooked up to the internet. The Dominion programs were said to be designed to throw millions of Trump votes to Biden. In 2002 to 2004, a Hammer supercomputer scorecard, app vote switching algorithm software on Dominion machines was borrowed from the CIA to be used in Venezuelan-developed Smartmatic vote-switching software by dictator Hugo Chavez and Venezuelan military officers in order to rig elections. On Sat. Morning the 28th of November 2020, Obama's criminal complaint was unsealed by Demers. U.S. Attorney for the District of Hawaii Kenji M. Price. Assistant Director of the FBI's Counterintelligence Division Alan E. Kohler Jr. and Special Agent in charge of the FBI's Honolulu Field Office Elise Miranda. A judge has imposed a media blackout in the U.S. on news about the arrest. But Canadian outlets like Conservative Beaver and a couple of Spanish-speaking newspapers were not subject to those rules and have reported on the high-profile arrest. Under direction of General Michael Flynn Mass, arrests were continuing on over 209,000 sealed indictments filed in federal courts across the nation since President Trump took office. On the 25th of November 2020, Flynn began executing high-level arrests overseas and was presently after pedophiles in the Netherlands, the New World Order and Council of Foreign Relations headquarters, where recently a lot of planes have mysteriously crashed. Henry Kissinger and others have been ousted from the Council of Foreign Relations. Military rendition flights were all over the U.S. It was said that hundreds of treasonous actors were being extracted, put onto flights, and interrogated until they turned, with an emphasis on finding evidence of voter fraud. These military flights were increasing in preparation for potential Antifa violence and RV release security. Apparently, for years, the Democratic Party and some Republican political elites have been working in cooperation with the Chinese and other communist parties to overthrow the U.S. government and set up a new world order. Trump and the White Hats of the alliance set up the 2020 presidential election as a sting to catch these bad guys in treason, with intelligence gathered by the Kraken. The Kraken was the nickname of the 305th Battalion Military Intelligence Corps, located at Fort Huachuca, as it provided electronic warfare and signals intelligence SIGINT. The 305th consisting of 6 companies, HHC, Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, Delta, and Echo. On morning the 4th of November 2020, right after the election, the Department of Defense, 305th Battalion and NSA began recording real-time fraud evidence of vote switching from all 6 battleground states, GA, ME, Y, AG, NV, in a blockchain tech ledger that was unhackable and undeletable. This real-time digital evidence would now be used to prosecute all deep staters involved in election and voter fraud, including Obama, Biden, and Haspel. Page 9 of Sidney Powell's federal lawsuits, filed in Georgia and Michigan midnight the 25th of November 2020. The Dominion software was accessed by agents acting on behalf of China and Iran in order to monitor and manipulate elections, including the most recent U.S. general election in 2020. On Tuesday, the 1st of November 2020, LTA, General McInerney tweeted, "It is treason."
Friday, May 15th, Bill Gates, $80 million smart city land is up in flames and people are connecting the dots. White hats on Telegram. Years ago, Bill Gates quietly secured 24,000 plus acres in Buckeye, Arizona, desert land tied to a future AI-controlled smart city. Now, that same region is on fire. Not a small brush fire either. A fast-moving blaze is tearing through the area, forcing evacuations and locking everything down. And right as flames spread, insurance companies are already pulling wildfire coverage in those exact areas. Read that again. Land tied to a future smart city, now burning. Coverage is disappearing at the same time. And people are starting to ask questions. Why that exact location? Why now, before any major development began? And why does it feel like the land is being cleared? Because it is. Smart cities need blank slates, controlled zones, rebuild-ready land, and suddenly nature does the demolition. Paradise, Maui, Pacific Palisades, Buckeye. At what point do people stop calling this a coincidence and start calling it a pattern? Land, fire, rebuild. Don't forget hurricanes and what happened on the top of the Appalachians in North Carolina, western North Carolina. It wasn't a fire, but it still cleared the land, knocking out all the dams and washing all the towns away. Friday, May 15th, the actor who ended up playing Joe Biden's body double for nearly 2 years will turn state's evidence to avoid jail time, according to sources close to the FBI's investigation. Benjamin Fulford on Telegram. How could he not know that was going to get him into some serious trouble, like treason level trouble? I would never agree to something like that. That's crazy. The suspect was hired to stand in one place for 10 minutes, said a special agent. That's how it began. Before he knew it, the subject was sitting behind the resolute desk and taking calls from foreign leaders. A birthday party impressionist ended up the leader of the free world, if only for a few minutes here and there. Dozens of West Wing staffers were complicit in pulling off the ruse. The whole building had to be in on it. Now, I don't know if this is Arthur Roberts or another actor. There's film out there. There's a video of one of the fake Joe Bidens getting off work and, skipping to his car. Obviously not Joe Biden, but, dressed up to be Joe Biden. So, yeah, this stuff was going on, and I don't know how many actors they use. Possible timing: Sunday, May 17, 2026, Starlink broadcast via EBS. Monday, May 18th, Zim redemptions and Jasara funds available. Tuesday, May 19th, 2026, full quantum financial system goes live, locking down corruption forever. Debt jubilees freeze humanity. Wednesday, May 20th, 2026. Trump declares republic restored. Global arrests of elites and pedophiles intensify under martial law as the new era of freedom and health dawns. On Friday, May 22nd, the gold asset-backed currencies of 209 nations in the quantum financial system rebirths the old fiat global financial system. Trump unveils plans for total independence from globalists. Tuesday, May 26, 2026, the final sequence activates a 48-hour blackout countdown to Thursday, May 28th, Monday, June 1st, or Wednesday, June 3rd. EBS override ready. Stay home. Order incoming. So we'll see what happens.
A temporary period of martial law would be in effect worldwide to maintain peace and be a support to the people during a period of mass arrests of Satan-worshipping pedophile deep state elites who have done harm to the people. 10 Days of Darkness on Telegram. Saturday midnight, the 16th of May, 2026, will be the beginning of a 10 to 12-day worldwide blackouts where the global military alliance and their Starlink satellite system will take over all internet, cell phones, TV, radio, and communication devices across the globe. 7 trumpets will sound, and then over a period of 3 days, President Trump will broadcast 7 different EBS messages to all cell phones worldwide. The messages will explain what is going on worldwide. Mass arrests of the bad guys, plus the new and greatly improved financial, educational, healthcare, and political systems installed worldwide after the worldwide blackout. Banks will close, and 10 to 12 days later, only a select few will reopen. They will have a different purpose of not holding your money, but will provide services only. Your now gold, asset-backed money was already mirrored onto the new global financial system and be placed in a personal wallet. After the 10 to 12 days of darkness, you will be called into a redemption center near your home to set yourself up on your personal wallet that only you can access. If you are a citizen of a country where you no longer live, you will need to travel back to that country in order to set up your wallet and take charge of your money. This was a free service handled by the military. Inside your wallet has been placed gold, asset-backed monies owed you by the cabal, such as illegal interest you paid on loans and money they gained by trading your birth certificate on the stock market. This money varies depending on the country in which you are a citizen and live. During a 10 to 12-day transition period at TMs, credit and debit cards won't work in order for everyone to switch over to the new global financial system. It is strongly advised to draw cash out of your bank right now to tide you over for the 10 to 12-day period. It is also advised to store food and essentials to provide for your family and neighbors during this transition period. The military will be handing out food and essentials for those not prepared. Be aware that there may be a time period where planes will be grounded and trains and buses won't be working in certain areas in order to protect people during mass arrests.
Friday, May 15, 2026. 500. That's how many times her name had shown up in the Epstein files. 500. It began when she was 14. Today she sat in a chair 2 miles from his mansion and told Congress what the Department of Justice did to her. QFS Redemption Center on Telegram. They didn't release his clients. They handed out her name, her social security number, the things they did to her body when she was a kid. 500 times within downloadable public documents. The abusers? Sealed. Yesterday in Palm Beach, 5 survivors spoke, not in private, not in censored transcripts, on screen. And they said what no one in power wants to hear. Half the files were not released. Half. Names you have seen, you know about, flight logs. You think you know the list, you don't. What they want you to see is what was released. The other half is what ends careers, ends dynasties, ends the illusion that your government protects children. In 2007, DOJ made a secret deal, agreement not to prosecute, gave the girls away. The men stood guard, exposed the kids, defended the billionaires. 18 years later, and the same system is still running. Congress was addressed by one survivor, saying 4 words, "I bet the FBI knows." They know it. They have always known. The files are there. The names are there. Here's the video. The question was never a matter of if. The question is who ordered them sealed and why that person is still breathing fresh air. Friday, May 15th, Nick Shirley went to investigate Cuba and talk to the local people. The final red pill on Telegram. He was told the government gives every citizen a little ration booklet for food. One person hasn't had eggs in a year. People have to wait years to eat a piece of chicken. The government controls how much food they get, and they're like, this is horrible. We haven't even had eggs in a year. Takes years to get to eat a chicken. Like stuff that you wouldn't even think about here in the United States. But because of communism and the government controlling what people can actually do and what they can eat, it dictates their entire life. Keep in mind, this is what Democrats want to bring here. Karen Bass and top Democrats would literally go listen to political speeches in Cuba. There's so many communists in government here. John Brennan is a communist. And I think he's a Islamic Brotherhood guy too. James Comey, communists. They're all communists. They're crazy. They're power-hungry people. Nancy Pelosi and a large group of House Democrats go with Barack Obama to Cuba. Barbara Lee visited Cuba more than 24 times, met with Fidel Castro multiple times. Pramila Jayapal, recent trips in 2024 and April 2026, Ilhan Omar, of course, went to Cuba. Jonathan Jackson went too. This should horrify every American. Absolutely. Friday, May 15th, King Charles descended freedom in the UK and America's next. Well, hopefully not. Julian Assange on Telegram. While literally sitting on a throne and wearing a crown like some out-of-touch feudal lord from the Dark Ages, King Charles just decreed from on high, my ministers will proceed with the introduction of digital ID. I think this is an operation to wake people up. Or the deep state took over, made a clone of King Charles, and they're pushing this, but I think still Patriots are in control, the White Hats are in control. But let's wait and see. This isn't voluntary modernization. This is a royal decree from digital serfdom. They'll call it changing how citizens interact with public services. Translation: the government now has complete, total, and immediate autonomy over your entire life. Say something wrong on social media? Medicaid shut off with one keystroke. Criticize the king or his globalist handlers? Peasant. Protest an injustice or speak truth to power? Evicted from public housing overnight. Sleep on the street where you belong. No trial, no appeal, no due process. Just your digital ID flagged and your existence erased from the system. Just like in communist China. That's what they want for the rest of, the world. This is the Great Reset, wearing a crown and smiling for the cameras. They've been planning it for years. CBDC, central bank digital currencies, and Charlie Ward has explained the difference between the CBDC and the decentralized digital system that we're going to have. Decentralized. We're in control. Social credit scores, total surveillance, and now the puppet monarch is reading the script out loud. Britain is the test run. America is next. Resist this digital tyranny or become a slave to it. This is their last chance at freedom if they don't resist this. Once they get this in place, it's hard to take freedom back without like a revolution.
Juan, break the news. Go ahead.
Well, probably most of your listeners are hearing this right now. Tina Peters, Governor Polis, has commuted her sentence. So it's a big deal within the mainstream media. What he did is he commuted her sentence. He didn't say it didn't happen. He didn't overturn the charges. He said that he's commuting her sentence to the time served at 2 years and 4.5 months or whatever it is, 1 year and 4.5 months. And it's a clemency action, which, just reduces it to time served. Now she'll be out on parole And the terms of her parole will be determined by the parole board, what she can and can't do, whether she can travel
More
out
like
of
what she
state.
can, more like what she can or cannot say.
Well, and that's another thing. See, Governor Polis also mentioned that the judge had violated her civil rights by saying in the sentencing that things that she said, added to the way he decided to sentence her. And he was punishing her for things that she was saying publicly. So he agreed with the appeals court that her civil rights had been violated, her free speech rights had been violated. So he noted that her sentencing was extreme because of that. And so for that reason, and because Tina confessed that she had done something wrong and apologized, please have mercy on me, then Polis is giving her mercy. That doesn't sit right, but everybody
So
has
she,
to
so
understand. Well, hold on. Let me say one important thing.
Admit she did something wrong. This
Hold
is
on.
crazy.
Remember, we were fairly comfortable that with the president's pardon, she would have been out a long time ago. That other things were in play to get her released, and none of those came to fruition in actually getting her out. And there are health issues, etc. So if Polis, because she is a political prisoner, totally a prisoner to both sides, by the way. Trump said he'd take extreme measures, and yet he was unable to go further than the pardon. Although the context, even right now for Polis, why did he do this all of a sudden just now? As Peter Tickton said a couple of times in the last couple of days, he personally advised President Trump that he should give Governor Polis till the end of the month. And if Tina isn't free, then he should go ahead and exercise those extreme measures. And that was in play by everything that we've heard. Polis bunted and said, okay, let her out. Tina admits guilt, admits that she did something wrong, and she gets out. The president's pardon still stands. And then ability to appeal these things, even up through higher courts, all the way to the Supreme Court, and overturn the underlying conviction remains for her. So the fact that he's provided clemency is not the same as a pardon. The clemency, from the way I understand it, allows her to still go through the court process and eventually overturn the underlying conviction. And then her confession and all the other stuff would become somewhat moot. This is not quite the same as what happened with Flynn, where he admitted before trial that he had done the crimes and then accepted the sentencing based on his statements. So I believe that what we're going to find is that this can still all be made to eventually go away, but this allows her to get out of the prison itself specifically, not free of the parole system, and then be able to address health issues and things like that, and be in a safer environment. The parole board could still keep their tongs in her for quite some time. And being Colorado, they may not want to let go of her completely for some time for optics, etc. So the fight's still on in many lanes, but this is still great news for Tina, and in a very difficult situation, about as good as we could hope for the moment, apparently.